The Bug Bux Podcast!
We're going to be talking about marketing. A lot of those folks don't know when to decide whether to use a marketing company like Pesty.
If you're doing less than $1 million per year in revenue, you should probably just be doing your marketing on your own. Google LSA is another excellent platform where it doesn't require agency expertise to find a lot of success with Google LSA. Sure that you're not being wasteful with the leads that you are getting. I would rather see someone from 0 to $1 million put all the money they would have otherwise put into paying an agency into training salespeople, into building really incredible sales department, into sales automation.
So what type of systems or what things need to be in place for those people right at about $1 million who are looking to make the next move?
Get your sales in order. Make sure that you have proper sales training in place, have a call tracking system in place so that you can actually listen to the recordings. When you go hire an agency and they start to deploy SEO, Google Ads work, that gap in your close rate matters a lot. And if you approach an agency and you are further down that scale, those leads are going to be the most expensive leads that you get.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bug Bux Podcast. I'm Allan Draper, I'm your host. Excited for our episode today. We're gonna be talking about marketing and how it applies specifically to your pest control company. So make sure that you listen all the way to the end. We're going to have a full summary and we're going to hit a few high notes right at the end. So make sure that you don't miss a second of this episode. I'm excited to have Andrew Peluso back with me. He's the founder and CEO of Pesty Marketing. It's a growth agency helping pest control companies scale past 7 and 8 figures through SEO, paid ads, and conversion optimization. He specializes in building systems that drive high quality leads, lower cost per acquisition, and turn traffic into booked jobs. He's worked with some of the fastest growing PCOs in the country, and he focuses on long-term scalable growth for companies doing $1 million plus and those who are focusing on doing 30% plus growth year over year. He's also the creator of whatkindofbugIsthis.com. It's a GPT-powered tool for fast, simple pest identification. So with that, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Allan. Good to be back. Appreciate you having me on again.
Of course. So I wanted to kick it off just talking about a lot of pest control owners, the guy or gal in his truck right now, maybe heading to a special service type or heading into the office or sitting in his office or her office trying to figure things out for the day. A lot of those folks don't know at what point or what metric or when to decide whether to use a marketing company like Pesty. What pointers do you have for helping pest control owners determine when it's right to pull the trigger?
There's a few reasons why we only work with pest control companies doing at least $1 million per year in revenue. And one of those reasons is that I'm of the belief that if you're doing less than $1 million per year in revenue, you should probably just be doing your marketing on your own. And that's not to say you can't get support, but there are so many channels out there that don't require advanced tactics. They don't require a whole team. They don't require an agency to help you be successful, or at least you can, with not much time, get a lot of results. Examples would be your Google business profile, right? And driving reviews to your Google business profile. If you attach your Google business profile to a platform like Applause, and you are incentivizing your technicians to do great work and for the reputation that you can build, that's a great way to get reviews, which improves your rankings, which gets you more leads, which then brings in more customers, which then gets you more review, right? And so a lot of this is about getting that cycle, that flywheel going. Google LSA is another excellent platform where it doesn't require agency expertise to find a lot of success with Google LSA. And with Google LSA, it's a pay-per-lead channel, right? And so granted, you can't, unfortunately, they don't give you much flexibility when it comes to arguing about which leads are good or bad. It's all through their AI, automated system now. But nonetheless, the cost per qualified lead is still good enough, and their system is good enough that you can set up that LSA account on your own, and it's not difficult to navigate having that system work. And then there are also pay per lead, partners out there, companies that I can't necessarily vouch for, but am aware of, like Goodzer, or there's another one called PestNet that I'm aware of. And I've had clients have, mixed results with some of these companies, and those leads kind of tend to be feast or famine. Mm-hmm. And then you have other more hands-off platforms, depending on where you are in the country, like Angie or Home Advisor or Yelp, where you can also get a profile going, get reviews. They have very straightforward systems for paying for leads. And, given everything that I just laid out as an option for getting leads, and the fact that you don't need an expert to do any of these things, to set any of these up for you, they all compound, and depending on your market, you might find that certain channels work better than others, but that is plenty to get you to $1 million, right? And so when cash is tight and you need to reinvest into operations, into hiring great people, into training your sales team, and making sure that you're not being wasteful with the leads that you are getting. Like, I would rather see someone from 0 to $1 million put all the money they would have otherwise put into paying an agency into training salespeople, into building a really incredible sales department, into sales automation. That is, in my opinion, a much better use of your funds from 0 to $1 million. And then eventually you get to the point where, the business is a little more steady. As operators, it probably always feels like it's going to fall apart. Like, I know that feeling, but you've got more cash flow. It's a bit more reliable. And you also might at that point want to really accelerate growth. You've hit this really exciting milestone, and you want to take things more seriously. But now, all these channels that got you there are probably not going to get you to the next level, or at least you need to think about some channels or some strategies that are a bit more advanced. And I think that's when you bring in an agency to really help you.
Gotcha. So let's talk about LSA a little bit. What is 1 or 2 or 3 tricks or tips that you have for helping those that are managing their own LSA ads to perform better? What are some of the metrics they're looking at? Do reviews matter? Do the number of reviews, response time? What are some tricks that you have just to, at the outset, what are some things people should be focused on to perform well on local service ads?
Yeah. So the most important aspect of being successful with Google LSA is that you are picking up the phone, or if you have the chat, turned on, you're responding 100% of the time. And in addition to that, speed to lead is everything. Put yourself in Google's shoes. The best user experience for their users is that when they click on an ad that Google is supporting, they call, someone picks up the phone immediately. Like, there's literally zero delay. Or they submit a chat and they get a response immediately. And the person who picks up the phone is knowledgeable enough and good enough to solve their problem, so that person doesn't then go back to Google and keep searching, or that response in chat is executed well enough that they engage and again they solve the problem. Where I have seen a lot of operators make mistakes is that they miss calls, or they pick up the phone way too slow, or they respond to the chat way too slow. And as Google, if you have 10 different advertisers, actually, if you have 2 different advertisers, you have one advertiser who only sometimes picks up the phone, or they pick up the phone, but it takes 2 or 3 minutes when they do. And you have another advertiser who picks up the phone every time, and when they do it in a matter of seconds. Why would I ever send my users to advertiser A, who I can't rely on and who I can't charge, right, if they're not doing a good job, versus advertiser B, who I know is going to, manage that lead effectively every time I send users to them. So that itself is the most important thing. Second to that, reviews matter. Those are now directly connected to your Google business profile. They're not disjointed systems. So the more reviews, the better rating that you have, the more success you are going to find on Google LSA.
Does it matter if it's a Google LSA lead when they leave a review, or are all reviews treated equally?
All reviews are treated equally now. Yeah, all reviews. It used to be disjointed systems where you had like Google LSA and their reviews, and then you had Google Business Profile and their reviews. But Google has since changed that, which makes sense because it opened up a bunch more advertisers who now could start with reviews rather than starting from ground zero just because they were starting on LSA. Another aspect of providing the kind of managing the platform that's helpful for Google is to ensure that anytime you book a lead, you mark it as booked. Anytime you get a lead, you provide feedback with the star rating, right? So if it was a bad lead and you give it 1 star, you can't necessarily rely on Google to agree with you and give you your money back. But at the very least, Google is going to, or their algorithm is going to identify that you consider that a bad lead. And same on the opposite side. If you got a good lead, maybe you even booked it, and you rate it 5 stars, Google's going to pick up on that, and you're starting to give Google some data to work with to say this was a bad lead, this was a good lead, and over time you should see the leads that you're getting improve. So that's just like all of that is good basic blocking and tackling of managing an LSA account, which again, there's no real expertise required there. You just need to kind of set yourself up for success. We've been sending a lot of our clients lately to a platform called LSARespond.com. They are a AI Google local service ads platform that specializes in marking leads as booked, giving feedback, listening to the transcripts. They have a Google LSA autoresponder, a whole bunch of features that are really great. And so especially if you don't have the time to manage a lot of this stuff on your own, LSA Responder can kind of take some of that off your plate. But equally true, if you have an in-house team who you're paying a ton of money, right, hours to sit there and go through all the leads and provide that feedback and mark booked or not booked, LSA Respond can dramatically reduce the time that it takes for your team to deal with all of that.
Bug Bux is proud to partner with JT Eaton. JT Eaton is a family-owned and operated manufacturer of quality pest control products since 1932. Did you know that JT Eaton invented the first bait block and the first manufactured rodent glue trap? Since then, JT Eaton has continued to innovate with products like Little Pete Multiple Catch Mouse Trap, Zendo Zone's fruit fly traps, cleverly disguised as succulent plants, and the new stretch long extension poles that collapse to 3 feet and extend to 15 feet. JT Eaton is JT awesome. Have you noticed whether Google will treat an AI or autoresponder to an LSA ad or, an LSA lead any differently? Like, does Google care if it's something that's just like an automatic chatbot response to a lead versus a human being, or whether they can tell?
I'm only going to be able to speak from theory here because I don't have data to know one way or the other. But I think in general, and this applies to whether it's LSA or blog content or whatever, the issue is not that AI creates a response or that AI writes copywriting. The issue is the same issue it's always been, which is if your response sucks, it sucks. It doesn't really matter if it was written by AI or you had a human, respond with like a crappy response. AI can produce great writing, and humans can produce really bad writing. Mm-hmm. So it's not the AI. It's not the source being AI that's the issue. It's that you just haven't trained it, or you haven't set yourself up to provide a response that's actually what's going to be useful and helpful for the user that you're responding to.
Gotcha. Let's talk to those they're just on the cusp of doing $1 million in annual revenue, or maybe they're just over it. So somewhere in the 750 plus to $1.25 million in annual revenue. What is it that they can do to prepare for working with an agency, or what can they expect? And the reason why I'm asking is I know that a lot of times that pest control owners, me being one of them, we think that our partners are a silver bullet. We just hand it off and there's nothing else we need to do. And you and I know that that's not how marketing works. This is a team. Your marketing company is another member of your team. So what type of systems or what things need to be in place do you recommend for those people right at about $1 million who are looking to give Pesty a call and make the next move?
My recommendation would be to have your sales in order as much as you possibly can, because when you go hire an agency and they start to deploy strategies that agencies typically deploy, SEO work, Google Ads work, Bing, Facebook, whatever, those leads are going to be the most expensive leads that you get, right? Mm-hmm. Like you'll have never paid more per lead up to that point than once you partner with an agency. Now, an agency worth their salt over time, it'll be well worth it. But if you approach an agency and you decide to work with someone and they actually are getting you results, they're driving leads for you, and you're not closing them, you're not picking up the phone fast enough, you're not following up fast enough, you're not following up diligently enough multiple times, it's just so costly. Like here's the math is pretty simple, right? So in my experience and in talking with operators throughout the industry, I have seen I would say average close rate for a qualified lead probably hovers somewhere around 35%, maybe 35, maybe closer to 40%. Mm-hmm. And I might even be generous, right? Because I work with some good operators. On the high end, the best sales departments consistently close 50%, and sometimes they're even closing in on like 60% plus range for inbound qualified leads. Well, if you are, let's just say for easy math, your close rate is 30%. And for every qualified lead, you're paying, let's call it $150. Let's call it $100. So that means that if you're closing about 1 out of 3, right, 30%, and your cost per qualified lead is $100, that means your customer acquisition cost is $300.
Yeah.
Like oversimplifying the math here, right? But $300.
Right.
If you're paying $100 per qualified lead and your close rate is 60%, well, you just cut your customer acquisition cost in half from $300 to $150. So that gap in your close rate matters a lot. And if you approach an agency and you are further down that scale when it, for close rate, you're already going to pay a lot for those leads and customers. Now you're going to pay even more potentially if you're bad enough to the point
Yeah.
where you're actually you've extended you're either losing money on some of your acquisition, and or you've significantly extended your payback period to the point where you're waiting so much longer to actually be ROI positive on a subscription customer. So in that 750 to 1.25 area, I would say like get your sales in order. Make sure that you have proper sales training in place. Like at least put some effort into that. Have a call tracking system in place so that you can actually listen to the recordings and hand that off to someone in the industry. There's a few really good consultants out there who can help a lot. Eric, who I know you work closely with, is one of those guys. Gosh, I mean, I would say I would put that at the top of the list by a lot. I could think of some other things like having good documentation in place on the operations side, like SOPs. Not on the office side of things, but really like in the field, the work that you do, your service offering, having all that document is really helpful for an agency that has any interest in leveraging those things. Like that's usually something that our clients have never done before working with us, and so it's very rare that when we ask for that kind of data, they actually have it on hand and they can just hand it over. Usually they end up having to go back to their team and build that on the fly. But that's the really juicy, nuanced data and information that differentiates your company from, Joe Schmo down the street. And your marketing agency should be leveraging that information to do better, more powerful, more effective marketing for you. So certainly working with us, getting those SOPs and documentation in order, pricing, all that is really helpful. Sales still being number one.
If you run a pest control company, you already know calls don't come in when it's convenient. They come in when you're on a job after hours or when your team's already slammed. And every missed call, that's a lost customer. That's why more pest control companies are using same-day AI. It answers every call, qualifies the lead, and books the job automatically. So instead of playing phone tag, you're just stacking booked jobs. No missed calls, no wasted leads. Visit gosameday.com or DM us same day on Facebook. No, I love that. I hear a lot of times from PCOs. I've heard this from people at Proof that are on the phones. Hey, my close rate is low because the lead wasn't good enough. And I know there's a difference between the quality of lead. You mentioned how Google likes the feedback on the LSAs, but I feel like you hit the nail on the head, right? It's a lot of times operators don't think how expensive generating leads is, and that there's this other side to it that they control. A lot of times when they're trusting an agency, they're hiring Pesty, they've put the marketing out there. Now somebody else is taking care of that for them. But that doesn't mean they can just set it and forget it. They still have to hold up their end of the bargain, especially if we're talking about driving a relatively strong cost per customer acquisition. And you give a perfect example. Like if you're closing at 60% versus 30%, you have that $150 difference per customer. Making sure that they're closing at a high rate, that they have those systems in place that you mentioned. That's what it's about. Making sure that they control what they can control and not just blaming it, on the marketing agency and on the quality of leads.
Yeah. And I get it. You're, as an operator, you are probably not a salesperson. That's probably not your background. And it doesn't really matter because it's a skill for you or really for your intake team to acquire. And there is so much good training, even if it's not a consultant, even if it's just going out there and listening to previous podcasts that you guys have done, or, podcasts that are on some of these other like really good industry podcasts. There's plenty of information out there to help you train your team. And over time, right, just like 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, so that eventually when you do get to that point where where you hope you're ready to work with an agency, you're not going to be perfect, but you're going to save yourself a lot of money and headache by having made some progress.
Love that. So we have just a few minutes left. I'm going to recap some of the things that we went through. But I wanted to give you a couple of minutes to think, because I want you to give me your closing thoughts, your kind of motivational pitch for these people that are right about at $1 million and what they need to do to get over that hump. That's a landmark number in the pest control industry. I feel like a lot of things change right around that number, especially for the owner, where they start to free up some of their time and they can start working not just on the things that they have to do, but the things that they're good at and the things that they want to do. So I'm going to ask you to kind of wrap that up. What are kind of those best tricks and tips to help those people get over that $1 million mark? But folks, today we covered, right off the bat, Andrew, he led with, hey, not everybody needs an agency. And he talked about the importance of local service ads and how that's a platform that you can run and manage yourself. So if you were kind of driving or not focused or whatever, make sure you rewind, go back to that and listen to what he has to say about LSAs, his tips and tricks, how important reviews are, and most importantly, how important the response time is. There's a huge difference between this immediate pickup and 3 minutes. 3 minutes doesn't feel like a lot of time. For LSAs, that's a lot of time. And then we talked about those folks that are preparing to hire an agency and the things they need to get in place, especially with that sales team. Make sure that they have the systems in place and that their close rate is knocking on 45, 50% plus, so that you can drive that cost per customer acquisition down. So with that being said, Andrew, what are your last few tips on helping people overcome this hump, and especially regarding their marketing to hit that $1 million mark?
Yeah, I could give tips, but if I'm being honest here about what it means to get over that hump and then to raise your ambitions and be able to execute faster than you might actually even think is possible right now, it really comes down to a way of being. It comes down to your ability, your mindset, your how you show up as a leader in the company, right? Like, it's the people who are successful, they didn't just stumble into it. It's not by accident, but they also weren't born with any of this knowledge. But they figured it out. They enrolled a team of people to be on this mission with them. They enrolled those people in being loyal, in staying, in working hard. They enrolled smart people who created leverage in their business. Pick up. Personally, I'm a huge fan of, and the majority of the reading that I do are biographies and autobiographies by some of the greatest leaders in the history of the world and in business. People like Napoleon or Caesar or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Or it's like, even if that's not your ambition, even if you're not trying to dominate the world, like Napoleon did, or even if you're not trying to go to outer space like Musk is, it's really fascinating, and you can still learn so much by understanding how these guys think, how they operate. Like, how the hell do you get hundreds of thousands of troops to stand behind you, knowing that their odds of death going into war with you is as high as it is? That's an incredible feat. How do you start multiple, soon to be $1 trillion plus companies and take over the world when it comes to some of the most ambitious projects in the history of business and technology? Like, there is something special about not who they are, because they are normal people, but there's something special about how they act as a leader and how they get people to, come in beside them and behind them to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So my only tip for getting over that hump would be pick up a biography or autobiography on the world's greatest leaders and start reading.
I love that. I always say that your business is never going to get to a level that is above your personal development. So in order to increase your business, make it better, become a better leader, you have to improve yourself. So I agree 100%. Andrew, thanks for joining us today. For the listener, you have questions, reach out to Andrew, check out Pesty. Andrew, what's the best way for somebody to contact you or somebody at Pesty?
Yeah, feel free to email me, andrew@pestymarketing.com. We also have a really phenomenal, sales director, Sarina, Sarinna, @pestymarketing.com. Of course, form on our website, phone number on our website, pestymarketing.com. We're open for business.
Perfect. And that's Pesty, Pesty, not the other Pesty. So just to make sure. Well, Andrew, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Love watching what you guys are doing and keep it up. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Allan. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Bug Bux Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us an honest 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next episode.